Okay. Thanks very much to David for that. So I'm going to be talking to you guys today about custom post types. We're going to be looking at what they are, when you might want to use them, and how to implement them on your website. The presentation, I guess, is pitched at, beginner developers, people with a bit of knowledge of the WordPress kind of theme structure, and maybe a little bit of working knowledge of PHP, but you don't need to know loads of it. You can get started with this. So, a bit about me. My name is Keith Devon. I'm a freelance web designer and WordPress developer from London. Specialise in building custom themes custom themes and plugins for private clients and also for agencies. And I started this group, I think it was in May or something like that, and it's come a long way since it was 4 people in the pub. It's quite exciting to see. Couldn't do it without the help of Chris and Emily there, so thanks very much to both of them. So what we're going to cover today, we're going to look at what custom post types are, when to use them, how to use them, taking things a little bit further. In that section we'll look at custom meta boxes and custom taxonomies. And then I'll just show you a few resources that I found online that I find really useful. And I'll take some questions if we've got some time. So first up, what is a custom post type? I've searched the internet for a decent definition. I couldn't really find anything. There's lots of waffle about it, lots of stuff telling you kind of what it isn't and what it's sort of like. I think it was named pretty badly. There's reasons that it's called a custom post type, but it's probably better to think of it as a custom content type. The reason for that basically is that it's it can be as much like a post or as much like a page or as different from either as you can basically imagine. So don't link it in your head to what you already know about WordPress posts. It's really something quite different. So let's look at some examples. So there's loads of content on the web that basically wouldn't fit really nicely into the post or page mold that WordPress kind of gives you. So we've got stuff, if you had a movie database, if you had a website, a company website, and you wanted to have staff profiles on it, podcast books, products, testimonials, the list is absolutely endless. There's all kinds of content out there. It doesn't just fit nicely into the post and page system. So here's an example of a client request. So a client comes to you and they say, I've got a holiday homes rental company, I've got about 20 properties, and I want to list the following information about each property. Back in the days before, I think WordPress 2.9 is when custom post types were brought on board. Does anyone know that for sure? Something like that, 2.9? Yeah, and 3 it really took off, and then 3.1 it kind of improved again. But in the dark days before that, as a WordPress developer, what you probably had to do was use posts. So what you would have done maybe is put all of your properties into posts, give it a category of properties, and kind of hack the system that way to get your properties maybe displaying on their own pages and things like that. So you could have like a list of properties on a category page and stuff like that. Basically, it was a bit of a hack. It ended up with messy admin screens. All your posts and your properties would have been in the same area of the site. Doesn't make sense to clients. Doesn't make sense from a coding point of view or anything. So luckily, custom post types came along, and with them we got clean user interfaces. So I'll show you examples along the way, but instead of all of your properties and posts being jumbled up together, they're actually in separate places now. It makes for easier theme customization. It's generally easier to maintain your code and just kind of keep a grip of what's going on. Basically, it's easier for you and easier for your client, and they're pretty easy. So registering a custom post type. Now you can do this with plugins. You don't have to touch any code to set up a custom post type on your WordPress site. What I would say is give it a go, even if you're not an experienced developer. Try this because it's not that hard. I'll show you the code that you need. It's a really short little snippet. You stick it in your functions.php file and you've got a custom post type. And doing it that way, if you come across problems further down the line or you want to extend the functionality somehow, you'll have more of an idea of what's going on already. So I'll show you that. I'll come back to plugins in the resources section right at the end. I'll just give you a link because there are some good ones out there. But this is how you would do it, just using the code. So in your functions.php file, you just drop in something like that. And that's actually more than you need to get started. I'll just talk you through it. So you can see that on the third line I've got registered post type, and I've called mine kdev properties. I could have called it properties, but I've given it that prefix just to avoid any potential clashes with plugins or anything like that. It's generally good practice to prefix your variable names. So I've called it kdev properties, and then I've got an array of arguments, and this is a really short array. There's up to maybe 20 arguments that you can add to kind of tell WordPress what you want your custom post type to function like. So at the top there I've got labels. Again, even within labels there's another 20 or so. This is just how WordPress is going to refer to your post type within the admin area. So I've called mine properties and property as a single. The next line, public true, that's an important line. If you don't put that in, basically you won't see your post type anywhere. You won't see it in the admin section, and you won't see it in the front end either. So make sure you stick that line in. The next line, the supports array, is kind of where it gets a little bit interesting, and I'll cover that in more detail in a minute. But basically, that's telling WordPress what you want to use in terms of, well, things like the title, editor, excerpt, thumbnail. There's another whole list of those. You've got comments, page attributes, revisions, all kinds of features that WordPress already has that you can take advantage of. And my last line there is just the rewrite slug. So if I'm using like pretty permalinks and I left that line out, my URL structure would be something like, mywebsite.com/kdev_properties/ and then the property name, which is obviously a bit ugly. So the rewrite, if you just add that slug in there, that's just going to give it a slug of properties, so it'll be /property/property name. So that's all we need. That, I don't know how many lines that is, and it gives you this straight away. So there's your WordPress admin area, and you can see there the properties link has been added in amongst the posts and pages. So already you're keeping things separate, which is great from a client's point of view, and even if you're the client, it's great from your point of view. So if we clicked on properties and then clicked on add new, we'd get something that looks like this. So at the top, I've just referenced that supports array again, and now I'm just showing you what's happening whenever you're adding each of those. So you can see the title, the editor, the excerpt, and the thumbnail. And what's almost more significant than what we have added is what we've left out, because building a custom post like this way lets you leave out things that are irrelevant. So you'll notice that on the right hand side, for a regular post, you'd have categories and tags, for example, gone. You'd have maybe a comments box, you have the revisions, authors, all kinds of things, all stripped right back. Again, just making it easier to use. And if we clicked on the view post link beside the perm link there, and this is still without any changes to the code except for that, there's like 15 lines that we put in, we'd get something like this. So you can see that WordPress already knows how to handle that custom post type without you having to do anything to it. So we've got the featured image at the top, the title, and the content. So that's a pretty good start, and it's been pretty easy so far. But you'll remember that our client requested a price per week and also the number of rooms for the property. And currently, unless we added that to the content area, there's no way that we can do that. So let's move on to template files. So if you're familiar with the kind of WordPress template hierarchy and structure, WordPress gives you two template files that you can use with your custom post type. The first one is single-posttype.php. So you just replace the $post type with the name that you came up with. So mine would be kdev_properties up there. Now I create that PHP file in my theme, and what I would probably normally do is start with either the default page template or a default post, or like single.php, and just copy and paste it across, and then make the changes that I want for that specific post type. So that's going to, if we just jump back, so this is using single.php. So if I wanted to basically use this template, but just make a few changes, I could just copy and paste the code from single.php into our new template, single-kdev_properties.php, and make the changes in there. We now have an archive post type capability as well, which I think is a kind of recent thing. So yeah, anything else on that? Yeah, if you're using the archive post type, one thing to remember is to add has archive when you're registering the post type. Otherwise, WordPress won't look for that. So in your list of arguments, whenever you're registering that, just add the has archive true, and that will look for your custom archive. So congratulations, that's it. You've created a post type. It was pretty easy, but there's loads more that we can do. So let's have a look at the next step. So the next thing we're going to look at is custom meta boxes. Now these aren't specific to custom post types, but I think they're something that really makes custom post types really useful. You can add these already to posts and pages if you want to, but used alongside custom post types, it really gives you a lot of flexibility and a lot of power. So these are three different types. I've got a text field, I've got radio buttons, and I've got like a double text field there. Three different types of meta box, and they're just added to your edit screen. That's the code. It's a bit more complicated than just creating a regular post type. But if you kind of start breaking it down, it makes a bit of sense. I don't have time to go into every line of this, but you can see the top. I've used the function add meta box twice, so I'm creating the two meta boxes that my client requested, which were to have rooms and price, giving them a name, variable names. I'm assigning it to the kdev properties post type, so it's only going to show up on that post type. These meta boxes won't show up on your regular pages or posts. Yeah, I'm not going to go through the rest of that. You can have a look at that online if you're interested. What's going to give you something like this. So now you can see on the right hand side, you've got your two meta boxes, number of rooms and price per week. So that's keeping that information nicely separate from your main content area. So now what we're going to be able to do is take that meta information and use it throughout your theme wherever you need to call it. Just show it a wee bit there so you can see them properly, just on the right hand side there. Okay. So in this case, I've created the archives template that we talked about. So it was archive dash and then post type name.php. And I've edited it slightly to use this bit of code at the top. The interesting bit here is the get post meta function. So that's basically looking at the post, so it's getting the ID of the post within the loop, and then looking for the specific meta value, and then just echoing it out, so outputting it, and then you can see there, price per week, £1,000, number of rooms, 5, and that's how you can use it. So it's a really useful function. So obviously on this page, I didn't want to have the full description showing for every property. I wanted like a kind of succinct just introduction to the property. So inputting that information into the main content editor wouldn't have done us any good. So this is just a really useful way to keep all that information kind of separate. And I guess the thing that kind of completes the holy trinity of custom awesomeness is custom taxonomies. And taxonomies are basically just a way to classify things. And in WordPress, we've got two different types. So we've got hierarchical taxonomies, and that's like categories. So if you're using your regular categories, say just for your posts, you'll be familiar with adding new categories, and then whenever you add another one, you can assign that a parent, and you can create these kind of tree structures of categories. So in the example I've used here is just the area. So say this client decided she wants to split things up by where her properties are. Currently she's only got properties in Kent, but if she expanded her business, she'd be able to add a new category for different counties within England. And then we can display them throughout the website in different ways. That each of those categories can have its own archive page, for instance, so you'd be able to view all Sevenoaks properties and view all Dover properties and things like that. Really, really useful. On the right-hand side, we've got the non-hierarchical taxonomies. And so that's like tags. So if you're familiar just with regular tagging, there's no concept of parents or children. And I've used those on some sites, for example. They're for interviewers and interviewees for a podcast website. Again, for areas, if you don't need to have multi-levels or universities, basically anything that you can think of to classify your thing, whatever it is. So custom taxonomies, back to some kind of easy code. That's it, to register one. Again, just drop that into your functions.php file. Top line there, so the taxonomy is called area, and then the next array is KDEV properties. That's basically telling WordPress which post type to assign your taxonomy to. So this is only going to come up on our custom post type. It's not going to litter the rest of your admin section. So again, it's keeping things really nice and clean. And again, I've just added hierarchical true, so that makes it act like a category. False makes it act like a tag. So that's nearly it. Got some resources there. I'll put these up online so you don't need to type them all out now or write them all down. Top tier, just WordPress.org resources, just introducing post types and registering custom post types. And then I have the plugins that I was talking about. So I haven't actually used any of these. I've always done it from scratch, but there seems to be some pretty good things said about that top one, the custom post type UI. So if you don't fancy getting into any coding, definitely give that a go. And then just some extra stuff generally about post types. Justin Tadlock has written a couple of really, really good articles on it. I think that's him on the WordPress as well. And then Chris, I just put the link to WP Alchemy there. Do you want to say anything about that? Because I know you've used it and you find it really useful. Yeah,
basically the thing I found with when I'm working with like meta blocks is that it's a lot of like you end up writing lots and lots of functions. It's quite hard to kind of keep track of where everything is actually supposed to be. WP Alchemy basically puts it into a single class and makes it much easier to keep track of. So I found that when I'm working on larger projects or working on any long running ones, that makes it much easier to actually know where to be looking when you're trying to actually change a single thing, and splits things out so that there's one part for dealing with code, one part for dealing with how it's going to look on the page, and so on. So you get a nice separation of the business logic with the actual presentation, to speak in jargon. So yeah, that's something I'd really recommend it. They're very handy.
So now you know what a custom post type is. You know kind of some useful times when you can use them. Hopefully I've made it look fairly easy to implement, and just to take away, it does make your life easier if you do build themes. Definitely get into these. They'll make your life a hell of a lot easier. That's actually it. I sped through that at the speed of light. So thanks very much for listening, and if anyone has any questions
got a question.
I thought you might.
Yeah. It's to do with sort of like, custom post types are great, and I have used them a bit now, as you know. I'm just wondering how you might actually feature them in menus, because that's something that the hierarchical sort of fitting them in with a current site hierarchy, notwithstanding what David talks about site hierarchies a moment ago. But in terms of sort of like how you sort of bash them into, you've got a series of properties, right, singular. You might want to show them off in a page that's properties, and you touched on that with the archive, obviously. But in terms of like if you've got a theme that has like drop down menus or something like that, you might want to sort of like incorporate them into like sort of seamlessly into a menu or stuff. So
this is kind of what you talked about before.
Yeah.
But you were saying in that case that it was like making them kind of children of or is that just to try to achieve the same effect?
Well, it was actually I discovered, because I asked Keith online about this. Is that I had flirted with custom post types on a site that I did, and I was using a plugin called Breadcrumb Trail because I had a bit of a hierarchy going on, and it would appear from Breadcrumb Trail's perspective that the custom post types were all children of the blog page, and so obviously the Breadcrumb Trail was broken effectively because I wanted them to sort of become children of another page, a page rather than a post. And so the question sort of stems out of that, really, sort of like how you can sort of kind of integrate them. Yeah, it's great to have custom post types, and it groups them all together and sort of keeps them out of your hair when you're doing all the other stuff. But in terms of like, there's a bit of, I found, struggle with sort of actually joining them into the certain parts of the site. Yeah,
well, I guess I don't know about the breadcrumbs thing, because it just depends how that plugin kind of works. Yeah. But using the archive pages, I mean, automatically you have a page that you can point a menu to. So if you're using WordPress's like custom menu system, you can create a menu item, give it the URL, and then just stick it there, and that's your archives page. Yeah. And then manually add children if you wanted to do it that way.
That was definitely a missing piece of the jigsaw for me.
Fair enough.
Yeah. You could also use a template page. And a custom loop, so then you can put your page, you can put your blurb about your cottages, and a list of your cottages underneath. So then you can have one page for cottages, one page for houses, one page for flats. So you can have huge pages.
Yeah, I was gonna talk about custom loops, but I thought I was going to go way over time, and I just went so fast there.
For posts and pages, we see the same thing. When we can talk about custom pages, just as we can talk about custom pages.
The way to think about it is that posts and pages are actually post types that already exist within WordPress, and then so you're just adding another one on top of that. Both posts and pages are known as post types within WordPress. They're on the post table. They're on the post table. So they already exist kind of like that. So it's just an extension of that. So another content type like that.
Keith, just a quick heads up. I reckon we've probably got, time-wise, got space maybe say 3 more questions. Cool. Just so that we've got more than 3 questions. So you get to choose.
Go for it.
Okay, as you know, in traditional post types, you have the WP get archives function.
Yep.
The dates. And I was developing a website for client, and I struggled to find a function to display the archives of custom post types. So, for example, monthly.
Function display monthly, as in. Like with a widget or something, a site.
Anywhere.
Just anywhere.
The WP get archives function.
Yeah.
Well, obviously that's for the native post types.
Okay.
Is there a function for custom post types to do the same thing?
I don't know. Does anyone know that?
There wasn't a few versions ago, but I think they've actually added it into the more like 3.2, I think, or 3.1 and 3.2. They added it in, I think.
Yeah.
I'm sure Google knows.
This was a few months ago.
There is a plugin, a custom post type archive plugin.
Yeah. So I just prefer not to use plugins.
Yeah, but then what you can do is download the plugin and rip it apart and use that
function. I was wondering if there's a ready-made function. Obviously, you can just write a custom SQL premium. That's different.
Yeah, I mean you can query for just custom post types within WP query, for example, just by specifying, I think it's just post type or something like that. So I don't know if that's what you mean. I'll talk to you a bit. Are you heading to the pub? We can chat it out. Yeah, good stuff. Steve?
I think you're like me, you do mostly custom themes, and there's a tendency to shove everything into the themes functions PHPs. I've been reading, well, over the past few months, I'm sure you've seen the posts about putting certain things into a functions plugin.
Yeah.
And I think custom post sites is a really good candidate for that. I mean, I think the sites that I develop, the custom theme, if someone wanted to change the theme on those sites, they're kind of breaking the whole site because it's so integrated. But even with a custom theme, if you get to the stage of redeveloping, revamping in the future, I think custom host sites are so kind of foundational that there's a really good argument for putting it in a plugin.
In a plugin, that's a really good point. I think I've actually started doing that reasonably recently, just a few times. I don't always, but it depends on the project. But I have done it, and it's a good point Steve's making actually. I think it's probably good practice these days to take functionality out of themes and kind of leave them for styling as much as possible. I just said to add it to the functions.php mainly just because it was kind of introduction. It's the easiest way to go about it because that file already exists and you don't need to worry about it. But if you are taking this further, then definitely like putting this into a plugin is probably the way to go. Good point. Thank you very much. Anybody else? Yeah, good for it.
Yeah, you said back in the dark ages we only had posts and pages.
Yeah.
But now we've got all this other stuff. It's like a database, really. That WordPress has got all its origins in being a blogging platform. So my question is, at what point, if you had a client that had something so different from the conventional sort of WordPress installation that you wouldn't recommend using WordPress, and you'd say, well, that's just too beyond it, you'd have to use something different, like Drupal or MediaWiki or something.
That's
how flexible would you go, or when do you say WordPress has got this sort of structure and this is beyond?
Yeah, I personally don't have experience in the other platforms. Well, as David's graph kind of showed, I feel like I backed the right horse at the right time. I got into this about 3 years ago, and I haven't any experience with any other platforms before that. But I can't speak for them, basically. But basically, yeah, I try to basically do everything within WordPress, and I haven't found too many things, too many sites that can't be done in it. There's things that it doesn't do brilliantly yet, like e-commerce. I think I've used Shopify recently instead, just because that's what it's built for. I've tried to build some e-commerce sites in WordPress and struggled a little bit. But I don't know, maybe someone else who is experienced in more platforms than just WordPress can take that.
I could talk. I mean, that's what we do at Headshift.
Yeah.
We found that WordPress is really, really, really easily the best thing up to a certain point where you start. Okay, it's not really a good one for kind of costs really, but anything from a small up to a medium-sized site where you don't need to, where you're creating your own admin themes. WordPress, we try to see how far we can go before doing stuff with custom work with either Ruby on Rails or Drupal or stuff like that.
Yeah.
But generally, WordPress is getting so much better, so much faster than anything else at the moment that it's increasingly becoming, in many cases for small businesses, WordPress is a really, really, really good thing to actually work with until you have the luxury of actually thinking, this is kind of getting a bit complex now because you just get so much for free or very, very cheap compared to Drupal or compared to a Rails that we can't actually, or we couldn't sell it, we couldn't make the case for ourselves.
Yeah.
So generally start with WordPress, and then when you feel you're reaching the limits, that's when you might want to look at something else.
Yeah, I think it's definitely getting more and more towards a kind of CMS than just a blogging platform. Like as time goes on, it seems to be going in that direction. I think that's it. I was just going to say, yeah, I'll do my best to post the slides as soon as possible on the website, and hopefully we'll get some video up as well. I still haven't done that for last month, so sorry about that. And yeah, pub time. So what's it called? Tap and Anchor or something?
The Anchor Tap. Just if you guys will just follow me,
yeah,
I'll show you where to get the drinks.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.